But I wanted to ask you about like, what do you? So if you have somebody with like a longer like plateau, how do you like how are they supposed to kind of deal with the psychological side of it? Because that's kind of hard on their mind, right? Like especially when somebody, for example, if they fail like a load that they've tried multiple times, like some rudimentary number, like let's say 200 kilos, they keep failing it, like they've tried multiple times, just it's a plateau. I feel like don't you think that there'll come a point where they just mentally put that thing on a pedestal now, where like they are going to fail that, and for me, I would think like the only way you could kind of like program out of that would be to just kind of make them rep it eventually, instead of trying to get them to do that at a max, just to get rid of that psychological effect of a long plateau, especially.
Yeah, for sure. Because that is again, that is again a byproduct of your training. So, like for example, I had a guy come to me who was already like at that level of going to worlds. Okay, and he had, if I'm not wrong, around 270 something deadlift. And he told me that like for the last couple of years he just couldn't break that for for whatever reason he just couldn't break that. He's having some technical issues as well, but also at the same time some pain related issues. So then first thing we got to do is fix the technique as well as simultaneously work on the pain. And then once that reduced, as a byproduct of how the overall programming structure was, the guy ended up repping 300. So the guy ended up doing like 302.5 for 3 or something like that at like an 8 or 9, which was still like, sub max.
Still insane for the
Yeah. For a guy who came with a 270 single, whenever we talk about long term plateaus and stuff, it's always about what exactly is going on, why is it happening, and what to fix. That's going to be the thing for anything. Like you have to take that approach for anything. Like even if somebody comes to you who's new, it's easier when somebody is very new, right? If they're new, because there's like, it's very simple.
It's like,
newbie gains are like so simple.
it's a fresh thing. You can like mold them as you want, things like that.
Yeah, plus the programming also is pretty simple. Like when they're new, it's just about like, just learn basic of SBD and just hammer your accessories. I mean, you're still going to do that later on also. It's not like you're supposed to do something very different later on. But like initially it's just like just hammer them so that they know how to work hard. And then they understand like, oh, I'm supposed to feel this way. What exactly is soreness like or something like that when they're very, very new. But like once they get into like that past that beginner stage or intermediate stage, then you need a little bit more smarter way of approaching things. And that's where the programming aspect is like big. For me, especially because you brought up the technique drift part, which I talked about earlier.
Yeah.
For me, technique drift is one of the biggest reasons for what I have seen when it comes to why somebody stalls. And I have one more guy that I can think of right now. So it's like, it usually goes like this, right? Like guy comes to me and he's excited to start off, new coach, new this thing, very excited to work with me and all of that, right? So the first block will be like, he's paying a lot of attention, and then he's fixing whatever I'm asking him to fix. And then he's like, oh wow, first block went well. And then I'm like, after the first block, since we fixed the technique, all I tell him is that, yeah, all I want you to do now is keep this, and then we'll have another block where we kind of just keep things similar or even repeated. And then we'll see how these changes have, just in technique, have show up in the outcome based off of the current program, right? Like we'll take a look at that. And then he started hitting, like suddenly he started hitting PRs. Like he started hitting numbers that were above his 1 rep max for reps, right? Here's where the plateau starts. Like when this is happening, you don't need to start experimenting with your technique when technique is going really well, right? Then they start experimenting. Then they think like, oh my, like, because when things are really good, the coach's feedback is just going to be like, yeah, things look great, nothing more than that. And that's when some people who are like very needy, where they have more, like, you could say more like they're more mentally or emotionally attached to training or something of that sort. Those guys will have a bigger problem because they're like, my coach is not really talking to me. I don't know if I did something wrong. My coach, maybe I need a girlfriend, not a coach. they don't even like, so they'll do things like this, and then they start like sabotaging their own lift.